Good afternoon, everybody. Friday, January 17th, and the TikTok ban has been upheld by the Supreme Court with a unanimous ruling. So you want some bipartisanship? Here it is. They're all agreed that TikTok is a threat to national security. The China-owned app is potentially a scary thing for the population, that it can steal more data and it'll cause some chaos within our country. And creators and influencers everywhere are mourning. They are in mourning. And I guess, there is still the opportunity. Joe Biden said that he will not enforce the ban. Donald Trump has not really commented on it. I mean, he did say that we would have to respect the court's decision. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens when President-elect Trump takes office, and we'll see what his take is on it. He had previously mentioned that he has a soft spot in his heart for TikTok, whatever that means. So hey, it's a pretty wild day. What's really interesting to me, have been the days leading up to it, where you have these established social media platforms, primarily Meta, right, with Instagram. And rather than move to Meta, who, as we mentioned last week, was already kind of jockeying for position should this ban really come to effect, they would rather go to another Chinese-owned app, and that's what we've seen really this past week. Red Note has been really gaining in popularity with some really kind of entertaining videos of Americans coming to another Chinese-owned social media platform. Another ByteDance app that has been gaining popularity is Lemon 8. I'm really wondering why we as Americans don't seem to be interested in any of the Meta-owned properties, or utilizing some of the other social media platforms that we already have. I guess obviously user experience is the number one reason, but it really is interesting to see how brand loyal to an extent people can be, even when it comes to something as simple as social media platforms. But the bigger thing here to discuss is, what does it mean for creators, right? TikTok has been vilified by many, as far as how their algorithm is influencing our youth, or even us, right? Doom scrolling and this total takeover of our minds and how we process and how our relationships work with people. At the same time, it is inarguable that it has changed lives, right? We're talking about things like Book Talk and influencers who have used and gamed the platform to create some really compelling content. Brands have used TikTok very effectively also, right? From Ocean Spray to Chili's to Taco Bell. They've been doing a fantastic job of creating engaging content, really having that one-on-one relationship with their customers and fans. And as somebody who when I worked at Pepsi, I had a peek behind the curtain of what Taco Bell was doing on that social media channel kind of wavelength. They really empowered their employees. They understood that sometimes it wasn't even the agencies that were going to create the most compelling work here, that it would be their own employees who are plugged into culture, who are plugged into the brand on a very real, boots on the floor kind of way. And they were able to create some fantastic videos for them. And it gave their employees empowerment, and as I mentioned, it gave influencers revenue, and it changed lives. So where people are going to go is going to be really interesting. Obviously, for long form, YouTube is still the king. It'll be interesting. You have smaller social media platforms like Clapper, who are kind of also gaining some popularity, but again, it's all about that user experience. Twitch for video, again, for longer form video could be interesting. The awesome thing about influencers, as much as you might want to hate on them, and content creators, is that they're adaptable, right? So they will very quickly figure out where the best opportunity is to create content, to monetize their content, and brands will also be very good at that, right? It really provides a really interesting opportunity. It levels the playing field a little bit, right? Because once again, brands have been building out their social profiles on TikTok and have really focused on that over the past couple of years. But now there's this opportunity to kind of redefine the social media landscape once again. And if you're nimble, if you can move quickly, if you can test some things over the next couple of months, this is a real opportunity for you to build a community, build an audience, and again, create some wonderful long-term customers. The one thing that I ask, please don't just run ads. Please, let's not repurpose a 30-second spot or any of that kind of content to whatever social media channel you're running. Create bespoke content, right? Like entertainment. Stop the preciousness of, everything has to be perfect. Price points and limited time offer messaging. Really work on creating entertaining content. That's how you'll get real engagement. That's how you'll get real feedback and emotional tie-in. And that's the best way to really, again, build a community on whatever social media channel you choose to go through. So it'll be cool to see what comes out of the embers of the TikTok ban. So really what's going to happen is, it was thought before that the US will just not supply updates or allow updates to the app, and that eventually the app itself would become kind of unusable, that it'll just be slow and buggy, and at a certain point people just wouldn't be able to use it. But TikTok themselves came out and said, hey, you know what, we're not even going to get to that point. We're going to just shut things down, and that'll be interesting. And there's this still kind of like stalemate, so to speak. So the Supreme Court voting unanimously, and TikTok saying that they're just going to shut down. It will be interesting to see whether behind the scenes there are still plays being made to sell the company or to have some kind of U.S. entity control it. Now, in the past, China's government has said that, hey, we will block a sale to any U.S. entity. So it's a real political standoff, and it'll be interesting to see how it comes out. But in the meantime, it might be, again, a wonderful opportunity for brands to try a different social media channel, test some new things out, and to speak to their audience in a new way. Maybe it is long form. Maybe it is using some of the different user experiences. Figure out how people interact with each social media, and then create compelling stuff to kind of work within that frame. Now, TikTok wasn't the only fun story from the weekend. I usually don't comment on other agencies' work because I kind of think, I wasn't in the room, I didn't get the brief. I don't really want to make any subjective calls on it, but there were two really cool executions I absolutely loved. The first and foremost being by the Apple team. And if you haven't seen this, it's really brilliant stuff. They basically got the Severance cast in advance of season 2 launching. They locked them up in a glass box, put them in Grand Central Station, and they basically spent the day working. And everybody from Ben Stiller to social media influencers to everyday passersby were taking some amazing video of Adam Scott and crew working, quote unquote, in the Severance office space. And I'll be candid with you, I love Apple Plus TV shows, but I have not caught up on Severance. And I always wonder whether these stunts work or whether they are just, a talking point or attention base. But this one got me. So, I think that's definitely on the queue for some February viewing or when we have some downtime. So kudos to the Apple team, and just great work, creative work. And really, it shows Apple does their work internally, so it's not like they're really farming out an agency. I mean, I think they do have a bespoke agency that they work with through TBWA maybe, but for the most part, all of that stuff is done in-house. And Tor Myron, who I had the pleasure of working with when I was at Gray, just seeing his creativity, fantastic minds work at Apple. But what you really need for a project like this is the green light from the brand, because this kind of stuff gets pitched a lot. People don't realize that. During brainstorming meetings, there's a lot of this experiential, catchy stuff that's coming in, and brands are very wary to do it, right? Because we're in a world of, hey, how many impressions am I going to get? How many click-throughs am I going to get? How is this going to measure? Everything is about cover your ass marketing these days, right? Very few people are willing to take a big swing and fail. Honestly, and the people that do, the clients that do, man, those are the rock star clients to have, because they realize the potential that, similar to baseball, if you go 1 for 3, you're going to make the Hall of Fame. So even if Apple strikes out on the next couple ones, or at least doesn't get it to this kind of level. This was a good one. If you saw it in person, that's awesome. I saw it purely through social media. I didn't go into the city. Kudos to Apple. Kudos to everybody who put it together, everybody who pulled the permits, everybody who, building something out like this in Grand Central Station, no less. It takes a lot of people hours and a lot of heartache, final changes, and the cast, getting the cast there, agents. It was a very big undertaking, and they pulled it off really without a hitch. So congratulations there. The other one was Mischief at No Fixed Address, the hottest agency from the last few years. Coors Light misspelling. I don't know if you saw the billboards, and a couple of things about this. First, I thought to myself, another misspelling stunt. It's fine. People will talk about it, social media and whatnot. And if even that was all that it would be like, whatever. It's a fun little stunt. But they're pulling it through with Case of the Mondays, which is a product that they're going to release the day after the Super Bowl. And I'm sure it's going to in some way tie into, Super Bowl content, Super Bowl commercials, getting a little bit more value out of a $7 million media Super Bowl spot by starting the conversation several weeks in advance and really getting people talking about it. That really makes sense. And that really, the fact that you have like the end pull through, that to me is going to be a home run, because a lot of times agencies and brands will do something that's like, hey, we're going to do something just for a day or two where it's going to be maybe fun or funny, but it doesn't have the long-term appeal of something like this. So, Mischief, again, like super creative folks and smart folks, right? Like, so they also know exactly what they're doing. And it was cool to see the pull-through of the execution, even more so than the original ad itself. If you haven't seen it, they basically misspelled the word refreshment. The funniest thing was people who just thought, hey, they really misspelled it, and even people within the industry. It's like your marks at a wrestling event, basically, right? Like you're basically watching the WWE and you think that it's real. Like if you're in the business and you didn't realize that this would go through multiple checkpoints and approval processes on such a big scale. Now, do things go through with a misspelling? Yes, but not on something at this scale. Whether it's the production company, the creatives, or the account folks, somebody would have caught this and somebody would have fixed it. So it's funny, the people who call themselves creative directors on LinkedIn, on social media, who were, laughing at the mistake that Mischief made, and it was just cute. The last big topic this week was the return to office mandates by Amazon and JP Morgan, to just name a couple. And I thought, to myself, we were kind of past this, but in looking at some of the data, some of the large companies, enterprise companies, are really asking their employees to come back to work full-time, 5 days a week. In fact, I think only 14% of enterprise businesses with over 25,000 employees at this point offer some kind of flexible working arrangement. So, we were in this era of, hey, I can work from anywhere, let me work from anywhere. And it probably swung the pendulum a little bit too far, right? You had people just kind of phoning it in, quite literally. I could really understand and see how that hurts productivity, but, going to the complete opposite end of 5 days a week, it's not the future of work, right? I think 72% of recruiters are basically saying that they have a tough time filling roles that are full 5 days in the office. And why is that? Because over the last now half decade, people have come to really appreciate and be used to the hybrid work environment. Look, it's totally understandable to want folks to come into the office 2 to 3 days a week. Collaboration is such a huge piece, especially our agency on the creative side. We need to sit there, riff, kind of bullshit with each other to get to the most creative point of view and really just kind of work through scripting and visuals and edit on-site, in person. It really creates a finer product at the end. But we also understand that 5 days is not realistic, right? So outline tasks over the 2 to 3 days that you get into the office, and then allow the remaining days to be used for the actual work. Because there's nothing worse than, hey, we're going to go back to the office and we have a meeting, but that meeting is a Zoom meeting anyway. So it creates this kind of bad vibe within the team. And we all know how important culture is to an environment of success. I really do think that employees and businesses need to be at least a tiny bit flexible. They're saying that 43% of companies in 2025 will offer some kind of hybrid model, which is fantastic, and that's up from 20% in 2023. So there is, this understanding that a little bit of flexibility goes a long way as far as culture and how enthusiastic they are about creating the work that they're doing. Only 25% are fully flexible. So again, I don't think that anybody at this point is really pushing for, hey, let me be out and about for 5 days a week, unless you're like in sales and you need to be on the road multiple times, right? That's not really great either, because you lose touch with your team, and it's really bad for your younger team. I always say that like one of the worst parts for these folks who came out of school during the pandemic era is that they're not grinding the way that we used to and spending 50, 60 hours a week in the office and making real relationships with people that would go on a long way. There's people that I worked with when I started out in the advertising business that are still to this day fantastic friends and contacts, and people that I lean on when I need help or need support. Having that kind of network, you start trusting each other more when you're in the trenches, those late Friday nights, instead of maybe partying up on a beach and doing that same kind of work, from a computer in a remote space. So I still feel that that hybrid model is somewhere in between. It'll be interesting to see how it goes throughout 2025. That's going to be it for this week. We're going to be back a couple more times next week, and we're going to talk about what I wanted to talk about today, which is the annual media plan, how to forecast for that, and just what an advertising campaign should look like for smaller to mid-sized companies and brands, and what are the things that you can do to really extend the value of an advertising campaign rather than just have it be within the media that you're buying it. We also might have some guests. If you know somebody who is interested in the media and advertising world and would like to connect, give me a shout and let's hook up. Let's talk about the business. I'm really passionate about it. I'm really interested in hearing other people's perspectives, and it would be cool to connect. In the meantime, have a wonderful weekend. Watch some football, make some bad decisions, and we'll see you next week.